Good morning again. Welcome to typography. This week's assignment is a simple flyer, just type. Say the message, just type. We'll get to pictures and color a little further down the pike. Remember, try to do this one all in black and white. And here we go. Simple flyer, that's this week. This is how we do typography. Use a one-page flyer using the following material: 8.5 by 11, export as a PDF so we can all see it. Now, real straightforward stuff. Anyway, and I changed, it should be 2023. I'll fix that in a second. But anyway, here's the material. We all use the same material and keep it from black and white. Keep it in black and white. And we're doing this in all type. Remember the stuff we've already talked about: alignment, grids, patterns. You saw a lot of my critique. A lot of you are having trouble with horizontal space, using that to group your elements together. Really use that in this one. Again, the spaces between things, horizontal space. Important stuff first, group related things together. You don't have to use all the information that we have in the prompt. Keep it in black and white. We haven't done color yet. Now what we're really doing is typography.
Typography. It's everywhere we look. In the books we read, on the websites we visit, even in everyday life, on street signs, bumper stickers, and product packaging. Simply put, typography is the style or appearance of text. It can also refer to the art of working with text, something you probably do all the time if you create documents or other projects for work, school, or yourself. Typography can be an intimidating subject, but it doesn't have to be. You only need to know a little to make a big difference in the stuff you do every day. So let's get started. First, some common types of fonts and what you need to know about them. Serif fonts have little strokes called serifs attached to the main part of the letter. Because of their classic look, they're a good choice for more traditional projects. They're also common in print publications, like...
You know, it's interesting. Research has shown that serif font is easier to read than sans serif ones without the little feet on them.
Magazines and newspapers. Sans serif fonts don't have that extra stroke, hence the name, which is French for without serif. This style is considered more clean and modern than serif fonts. Also, it tends to be easier to read on computer screens, including smartphones and tablets. Display fonts come in many different styles, like script, black letter, all caps, and just plain fancy. Because of their decorative nature, display fonts are best for small amounts of text. For example, titles and headers, and more graphic-heavy designs. In a way, fonts have their own language. They all have something to say beyond the words on the page. They can come across as casual or neutral, exotic or graphic. That's why it's important to think about your message and pick a font that fits.
Very big time.
Some fonts come with extra baggage, like Comic Sans, Curls, Papyrus, and many more. There's nothing particularly wrong with these fonts. They just have a certain reputation for being outdated and overused.
Comic Sans. Everybody hates it because they've used it all the time.
If you find yourself tempted by them, think twice and consider using something else.
Big time.
There are many fonts with a similar look and feel that are less likely to detract from your message. When deciding which fonts to use, less is more. it's best to limit yourself to 1 or 2 per project.
Big time. One for headlines, and all headlines should be there. And then your body content should all be the same. And then maybe one more font for a logo or something, for something special. But like they said, less is more. Too many fonts and you're doing what we call the ransom note look. Avoid it.
If you need more contrast, try repeating one of your fonts in a different size, weight, or style. This trick is practically foolproof for creating interesting combinations that work. You've probably heard the saying, opposites attract. Well, the same is true for fonts. Don't be afraid to combine font styles that are different but complementary, like sans serif with serif, short with tall, or decorative with simple. This can be challenging at first, but don't despair. Look to other designs for inspiration, and soon you'll get the hang of it. Maybe you've heard terms like kerning, leading, tracking, and hierarchy. For those with more experience, these concepts are essential for creating professional-looking designs. As a beginner, you don't need to know everything about these terms, just enough to inform your work and help you talk about design with more confidence. Hierarchy is used to guide the reader's eye to whatever is most important. In other words, it shows them where to begin and where to go next, using different levels of emphasis. Establishing hierarchy is simple. Just decide which elements you want the reader to notice first, then make them stand out. High-level items are usually larger, bolder, or different in some way. Remember to keep it simple and stick to just a few complementary styles. Leading is the space between lines of text, also known as line spacing. If you're not sure how much line spacing to use, don't fret. The default is usually fine. The goal is to make your text as comfortable to read as possible. Too much or too little spacing can make things unpleasant for the reader. Tracking is the overall space between characters, sometimes called character spacing. Most programs let you condense or expand this depending on your needs. In some designs, you might adjust your tracking to create a certain artistic effect. It can also help you fix fonts that are poorly spaced to begin with. Kerning is the space between specific characters. Unlike tracking, it varies over the course of the word because each letter fits together differently. Some fonts have what we call bad kerning, making certain letters look improperly spaced. If a font you're using has bad kerning, it's best to cut your losses and choose something else. Well-crafted text can mean the difference between an ordinary project and an extraordinary project, even if you're just getting started with design. All it takes is an interest in typography, and you'll start to notice more, see more, and be able to do more in your own work.
All right. I think that's a pretty good video showing a lot of the kind of things we can do. So consider that. Anyway, what type does? It gives you information and it organizes information. And that's a big thing in design, no matter what you do. You're always organizing information and presenting it. And again, the business cards is a good exercise in it. So is the resume, so is the flyer. We're all organizing information. And it establishes your personality or your brand. And that's the kind of, your type can give you your message. Remember, type is art. I mean, it is a kind of visual element as much as a picture. It conveys as much as a picture or a video. Here's bad typography. can see, hard to read, how to piss off your designer friends. Look at bad spacing, not enough variety, the ransom note look. I love this. Too many fonts, and this is what you get. Here's also too many fonts. Look at all of this. Bad, 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 bad. Again, simple, straightforward. That's the stuff that really works. Here's another one. Bad spacing here, different fonts, side by side, hard to read. Your eye doesn't move across the page. All sorts of bad stuff on that one. So don't do that. Simple and straightforward. That's what we really need. Worst fonts ever. I enjoy these. Brunch with the Bunny. Hard to read. We will not be undersold. I mean, it's just ugly, ugly, ugly. So anyway, you can look at those. I have them posted on the course page. Good typography. Here we go. See, boom, big and bold. Cool. I don't love the bold here, but you get the point. You notice at least the headline is bold. Very nice. Very nice. Again, you notice how few words you folks are using. And think about that in this week's assignment. You don't have to use all the space. Okay, measuring type. Points and picas. Fun, fun.
Hi, this is David Blattner from InDesignSecrets.com. And have you ever noticed that a lot of designers, especially those who've been doing it for a long time, talk about measurements like picas and points? Well, what the heck is that all about? Why not use inches or millimeters or something, normal? Well, it turns out that there are some really good reasons to learn picas and points. And while it may seem like a crazy system at first, it's really not that hard to learn. Now, the number one reason to use points and picas is that they're just more precise than other measurements. A lot of people like using millimeters, but a point is about 1/3 of a millimeter. So it's really small. In fact, you can fit 72 of them into a single inch. And that makes it great for precision.
That's the point. 72 points an inch.
And for dealing with small things like type. In fact, almost all programs use points to measure font sizes and leading, or line spacing. And because leading is defined in points, it's often also helpful to spec other typographic settings in points too, such as margin indents or space before or after paragraphs. And the more you use points, the easier it is to ensure that your spacing is consistent throughout your document. A lot of people say a point is the same size as a pixel on screen, but that is a myth. Screen pixels come in a range of sizes, and these days they're usually way smaller than a single point. But that said, for historical reasons, most images that are called web or screen resolution are set to 72 pixels per inch, and that is actually the same as a point. So there are 72 points in an inch, or about 3 points in a millimeter, or 30 points in a centimeter. Well, more like 29. So working with points is relatively straightforward. But what about picas? Well, picas are where most designers start to get confused because there are 12 points in a pica, just like there are 12 inches in a foot, right? And that means a pica is about 4 millimeters, or about 1/6 of an inch. It's not really that hard, but it does take some getting used to. Now, when you work with picas and points, you'll see measurements like 3P0, which means 3 picas and no points. So this is the same as 1/2 inch, or 12.7 millimeters. But where it really gets helpful is if you want to add just a little bit, Again, it's all about precision, right? So for example, 3P2, which is 3 picas and 2 points, is a lot easier to type or say than 0.5278 inches or 13.406 millimeters. So I use picas and points for type and for positioning stuff on the page. But for page size and anything big like that, I almost always switch to inches or centimeters. It's just easier to say a letter size page is 8.5 inches wide, or an A4 is 21 centimeters wide. So try using picas and points. You are going to find it annoying for the first few days, but soon you'll understand why designers have, for decades, preferred this measurement system. Well, that's it for this episode of InDesign Secrets. Be sure to check out InDesignSecrets.com for thousands of
I thought that was a pretty good video telling you what, again, measuring type is about. And remember, even though if you're doing 72-point type and it's an inch bigger, but you have 2 lines of it, you got to figure the leading in the space between it as well. So 2 lines of 72-point type would probably be about 2.5 inches tall. Anyway. Type for arranging effective communication. Look at that. I love that. But type is a beautiful, type is a beautiful group of letters, but not a group of beautiful letters. I like that. Think in blocks. See 2 things together, and you notice they are held together by leading. Type is not an exact science. It's an art. See, we have a headline. I don't love the fact that the headline goes further than the body copy. I'd stretch the body copy outside, realign if necessary. See, it's doing what I told you. Start with one typeface. That gives you, actually start with one font. That gives you 4 different typefaces. Do not read the next sentence, you little rebel. I like you. Skip. When in doubt, skip away. You don't need the next one when in doubt. But I also think this should be closer to I am your cheese, which is what that says. Pay attention to your line spacing. See, that's harder to read than this. When in doubt, 1.5 the typeface. Like I was saying, 72 points type, 2 lines of it, about 2.5 inches. Pretty much what it says here. Tame the flow. Blah, 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 blah. Too many words. Keep them short. See, too wide. This is why we like columns. Too wide and it's hard to read. Put this into a column, it's much easier to read. When in doubt, a line left. Don't center. We already talked about that in the first lecture. Center, and it's like eating a corn on the cob. You're just going back and forth and it's not good. Okay. Long dash, middle dash, and a hyphen. A hyphen is short, long dash is long. Hyphen is for, this is grammar stuff. En dash makes a connection. It's underused, such a waste. Long dash, I sometimes use 3 dots. Kerning is the space between letters. See, bad kerning here, bad kerning there. See the space here? Not good. Have fun. Okay, again, I have all of these posted. Elements you need to understand. We did serif and sans serif, decorative. Hierarchy, your most important stuff goes on top. Visuals, headlines, and then everything, most important things on top. Not great hierarchy here. These elements should be big and bold on top. No hierarchy here. Your elements should be bold for your headlines. See, look at this. James, look at with hierarchy and elements, boom. No variety, lots of variety. Think about that this time. Contrast, large and small. See, that tells you large and small. You just say it, but here gives you what large and small is. Consistency. Again, I see a lot of inconsistencies. Always have your headlines the same font, always have your subheads the same font. Otherwise, you're getting into ransom note territory. Alignment, see, not great. This should be under there. And put the camera over here. See, not great to read. Much better. Yes. Align things consistently and then flush this left too. See? White space when you need it. If this headline goes with this element, then you don't need that white space. Sometimes, again, a little element with lots of space draws your attention. Color, we haven't done color yet. Just keep this to black and white right now. Anyway, more stuff to look at. Anyway. Oh, I already did that.
Ready to be an e-commerce pioneer? Bluehost has step-by-step WordPress onboarding to make
important aspects of good design.
Hey, I'm Hope Armstrong, a teacher and product designer here at Treehouse. Every day you see typography in action. It's on the menu of that restaurant you love eating at. It's on road signs you drive by, and it's definitely all over that favorite site of yours, which is, let's be honest, Treehouse, of course. All that to say, typography is everywhere, whether people realize it or not. Something so ubiquitous is often taken for granted, but it's really powerful, as designs are often mostly comprised of type. There's so much to learn. First, we need to understand what typography is. On Matthew Butterick's site, Practical Typography, he defines the term simply as follows. Typography is the visual component of the written word. This means typography comes into play when words are visually displayed on surfaces, like screens, paper, posters, signs, and more. Though the words or content of something might remain the same, the typography can change. Let's take a look. Here's the text, I shot the serif. We can shape how it looks through typography. For example, we could increase the size of the text and align it in the center. We could change the typeface from Georgia to Futura and set it in uppercase letters. We could also adjust the letter spacing or tracking between characters. We could go on forever making different adjustments, but I wanted to give you a quick sample of typography in action. If you don't know how to do any of these things, don't worry. Most situations are.
This video is 2 hours. You can see that on your own if you really want to keep it. I just have it there for your enjoyment if you really get into it. So, I mean, think about hierarchy, white space, organization this week. I have the information there on the prompt. It's up to you. Send me your drafts as you pull it together, and you don't need to use all the information. Just type, just black and white. We'll get to color next time.